Have you ever hit a moment so dark, so painful, that giving up feels like the only way out? What if I told you that in that exact moment lies the secret to unstoppable strength, something nobody warns you about? Today, I am going to take you on a journey through shock, struggle, and the fierce fire that refuses to die. Stay with me till the end, because what happens next will change the way you fight forever. The room was cold, the air thick with silence. Only the sound of his own breathing filled the space. He sat alone, the weight of failure pressing down like a heavy stone on his chest. His hands trembled slightly, fingertips brushing against the rough, worn surface of the old wooden table. Outside, rain hammered against the window, each drop a reminder of the storm raging inside him. His heart pounded loud, echoing the thunder that rolled in the distant sky. He had lost everything he thought he had: hope, direction, strength. Every step forward had led him deeper into darkness. A sudden chill ran down his spine. His eyes closed tightly, trying to shut out the memories that burned like fire behind his eyelids. The room seemed to shrink, walls closing in like the grip of despair itself. But then something shifted. A faint whisper, almost drowned by the storm, touched his mind. It was the voice inside, the one he had ignored for too long. "You cannot give up," it said. "Not now. Not after all you have endured." The rain outside slowed, as if waiting for him to decide. He opened his eyes. For the first time in what felt like forever, the darkness did not seem so endless. A spark ignited deep within his soul, a fragile flame fighting to survive the cold. The pain was real. The fear was real. But giving up? That was not an option. Because sometimes the moment when you feel most broken is the moment you are closest to breaking through. His breath steadied. The pounding thunder turned into a distant echo. The walls did not close in anymore. They stood there solid, waiting for him to rise. The storm outside began to fade, and inside, something stronger was born. He stood up slowly, each movement deliberate, each step a rebellion against surrender. He knew the path ahead would be brutal, but the only way out of the dark is through it. He took a deep breath, feeling the cold air fill his lungs like a surge of life returning to a body long dormant. The silence in the room no longer suffocated him. It challenged him. The worn wooden floor beneath his feet creaked softly, as if acknowledging his first step toward something greater. Outside, the storm clouds were breaking apart, fragments of gray dissolving into pale shafts of sunlight that pierced the horizon. It was a quiet, subtle transformation, but one that mirrored the shift within him. Every scar on his heart felt alive now, pulsing with the truth he had refused to face. That pain was not his enemy. It was his teacher. The failures, the losses, the unbearable nights spent wrestling with doubt, they had forged him, hardened him in ways comfort never could. He realized that strength was not born from ease. It was born from struggle, from refusing to let the darkness claim him completely. His fingers brushed the surface of the table again, tracing invisible lines, mapping out the journey he had traveled. It was jagged, uneven, marked by mistakes and moments of despair. But it was his. Every step taken, every fall endured, had led him here, standing on the edge of something unknown, trembling but unbroken. He could still hear the echo of the storm outside, the thunder that once drowned his hopes, now a distant murmur. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what he would do next. The air smelled of wet earth and new beginnings, heavy with possibility. His skin tingled, a reminder that he was alive, that he had been given this one chance, to rise or to remain lost. The question was no longer whether he would continue. It was how fiercely he would fight to hold on. The fire inside him grew warmer, spreading from his chest to his fingertips, igniting every fiber of his being. He was no longer the broken man who sat alone in the cold room. He was a warrior awakened, ready to face the battles ahead. He took a step forward, then another. Each footfall was a statement, an affirmation that surrender was not in his nature. The walls around him seemed to expand, breathing with the same new energy that coursed through his veins. The room, once a prison of silence and shadows, transformed into a sanctuary of resolve. His mind raced with memories, flashes of every challenge he had faced. The sleepless nights, the endless doubts, the voices that told him he was not enough. They still echoed, but now they sounded distant, powerless against the force he had summoned. He had chosen to stand, to fight, to believe in the impossible. The sun climbed higher, casting golden light through the windows, bathing the space in warmth. It was a reminder that even after the darkest nights, dawn comes. And with dawn comes hope, fragile, yet relentless. He clenched his fists, feeling the surge of determination flood through him. There would be days ahead filled with pain and uncertainty. The road would be treacherous and unforgiving. But giving up was not an option. Not when everything he had been through had led to this moment. He was not defined by his failures, but by his refusal to be defeated. Each breath was a promise to himself, to keep moving forward, no matter how heavy the burden, to face fear with courage, to embrace the struggle as the price of growth. The storm had passed, but the fight had just begun. He knew the path would test him, break him, and rebuild him in ways he could not yet imagine. But he was ready. He would carry the fire within him, a beacon in the darkest nights. Because in that moment of shock and discomfort, in the heart of the storm, he discovered the truth. You cannot give up. Not when your soul demands more. Not when your dreams are still waiting to be claimed. Not when the world needs the light only you can shine. He stepped toward the door, the outside world calling. The rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh and alive. He opened the door, stepping into the new day with eyes wide open and a heart fierce with hope. The journey was far from over. It had only just begun. He stepped into the fresh air, the cool breeze brushing against his face like a quiet reminder that life, in all its rawness, was still moving forward. The ground beneath his feet was wet, the remnants of the storm soaking into the earth, but instead of feeling heavy or burdensome, it felt alive, full of potential and promise. Each droplet that clung to the leaves shimmered like tiny diamonds, catching the morning light, whispering stories of resilience and rebirth. His eyes scanned the horizon, where the sun had begun its steady climb, painting the sky with streaks of pink, orange, and gold. It was a canvas untouched by doubt, a symbol of endless beginnings. In that moment, he realized that life does not wait for perfection. It demands presence, courage, and an unwavering will to push through even when the weight of the world threatens to crush every fiber of your being. He could still feel the ache inside, a stubborn, burning reminder of the battles fought, the dreams deferred, and the moments when surrender seemed like the only escape. But that ache was no longer a chain. It was a fuel, a constant, driving force pushing him onward, telling him that pain was part of the process, not the end of the story. Around him, the world was awakening. Birds began their morning songs, tentative at first, then rising in a crescendo of life. The scent of damp earth mingled with the subtle fragrance of blooming flowers, a natural symphony welcoming the new day. It was in these small details, the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft hum of bees, that he found solace and strength. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. Challenges lurked like shadows in the distance, ready to test his resolve. There would be moments when doubt crept in, whispering lies of inadequacy and failure. But he understood now that those whispers were just noise, fleeting, meaningless unless he chose to listen. Every step forward was a declaration, a testament to the resilience forged in the crucible of hardship. He had learned that true strength is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. That courage is not the roar of certainty, but the quiet voice that says, "I will try again." He recalled the times he had fallen, hard and fast, when the world seemed to collapse beneath him. Yet here he was, standing tall, breathing deeply, ready to face whatever came next. Each scar, each wound, was a badge of honor, proof that he had fought and survived. They were reminders that survival is not about avoiding the storm, but learning to dance in the rain. The sun continued to rise, casting long shadows that stretched and shifted with the passing moments. Light and darkness intertwined, a constant reminder that life is a balance of both. He embraced the uncertainty, knowing that it was within that space, the tension between fear and hope, that transformation happens. His heart beat steadily, a rhythmic drum calling him to action. There was no time for hesitation or regret. The future was not written in stone. It was shaped by the choices made in this very moment. To give up would be to erase all the effort, all the tears, all the sleepless nights that had brought him here. It would be to betray the fire that still burned fiercely inside. With a newfound clarity, he set his gaze forward, eyes sharp with determination. The path might be long and winding, filled with unexpected twists and turns, but he would walk it with purpose. Each step, no matter how small, was progress. Each breath, a victory. He thought of the people who doubted him, the voices that said he would never make it, that he was destined to fail. Their words no longer held power. Instead, they served as fuel for the fire inside, igniting a fierce desire to prove not just him wrong, but to prove to himself that he was capable of greatness. The world outside buzzed with life, indifferent to his struggles, yet full of opportunity. The challenges ahead were daunting, but so was the strength he carried. He had learned that perseverance was not a choice but a necessity. It was the bridge between despair and hope, failure and success. His mind replayed the moments of weakness, the nights filled with tears, the crushing weight of loneliness. Yet none of those moments defined him. They were chapters in a story far greater, a story of relentless courage and unyielding spirit. He understood now that giving up was not an option reserved for those who tried. It was the refuge of those who never dared to face the storm. But he was no longer that person. He was a fighter, a survivor, a warrior standing at the threshold of possibility. The sky above was clear now. The last traces of the storm vanished, leaving behind a canvas of blue so vast it seemed to stretch into infinity. It was a reminder that life, with all its challenges, was still full of endless chances. He took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs and stir the fire within. Every moment was a choice, to give up or to fight, and in that choice, he found his power, because the truth was simple, yet profound. You cannot give up. Not when your dreams still call to you in the quiet moments. Not when your heart beats with the desire to rise again. Not when the world needs your light, your courage, your story. He stepped forward, one foot after the other, walking into the day with a heart unbroken, a spirit unshaken, and a mind set on victory. The journey was his to claim. The battle was far from over, but he would face it head-on. Because giving up was never an option, he moved forward into the awakening world, feeling the sun's warmth slowly replace the cold grip of the night. Each step carried weight, not the burden of failure, but the weight of purpose, the steady resolve that no matter how difficult the road ahead, he would walk it with unshakable determination. The grass beneath his feet was wet with dew, cool and fresh, grounding him in the present moment. The air smelled of renewal, as if the earth itself was whispering encouragement, urging him onward. His mind flickered back to the moments of doubt that had once threatened to consume him. How easily fear had wrapped its cold fingers around his dreams, whispering that he was not enough, that the struggle was too great. But now those whispers seemed distant, like echoes from a past life. He understood that fear is a shadow cast by uncertainty, real but not undefeatable. The only way to conquer it was to step into the light of action, to face it head-on, even when the path was unclear. The world around him was alive with signs of change. Trees swayed gently in the morning breeze, their leaves shimmering like tiny flags of victory. Birds soared overhead, their wings cutting through the sky with effortless grace. Life was in motion, and so was he. There was no room for hesitation, no space for retreat. His heartbeat matched the rhythm of the world, the pulse of hope that beats quietly inside every soul willing to fight for more. He was no longer a victim of circumstance. He was the author of his own story, pen poised to write new chapters of courage, resilience, and relentless pursuit. Ahead, the path stretched out, uneven and uncertain, but undeniably real. It beckoned him forward, promising challenges, but also the possibility of triumph. Every scar, every failure, every sleepless night had prepared him for this moment. They were the foundation upon which he would build his future. The memory of the storm lingered, but it no longer held power over him. Instead, it served as a reminder that even the fiercest tempests eventually give way to calm. His pain, his fear, and his exhaustion were part of the journey, not the destination. They were the tests that shaped him, the fire that forged his spirit. He reached out, touching the rough bark of a nearby tree, feeling its strength and resilience. It stood tall despite the winds that tried to bend it. Like the tree, he would bend but not break. He would weather the storms and continue growing, reaching higher toward the light. With every breath, he claimed more of his strength. The past no longer defined him. The future was a blank canvas, waiting for the colors of his courage and determination. The moment of shock and discomfort that once threatened to paralyze him had transformed into a catalyst for change. He was ready to embrace the unknown, to walk the path of uncertainty with open eyes and a fearless heart, because he knew this truth deep within. Giving up was never an option, not when the fire inside burned brighter than the darkness outside, not when every step forward was a victory over fear, not when the dream was worth every sacrifice. He lifted his face to the sky, feeling the sun's rays warm his skin like a promise. The journey ahead would not be easy, but it would be his, and he would walk it with the fierce conviction of someone who refuses to surrender. Because the greatest power lies not in never falling, but in rising every time you do. He stepped forward once more, the earth firm beneath his feet, carrying him into the vast expanse of possibility that stretched before him. The scent of damp soil mixed with the crisp morning air, filling his lungs with a raw reminder of life's persistence. Every inhale was a renewal, a silent vow whispered deep within his soul that no matter the obstacles, he would not falter. The path ahead was uncharted, a winding road cloaked in mist and mystery. Yet that uncertainty no longer bred fear. It sparked a fierce excitement. The unknown was a canvas waiting for his footsteps to paint a story of triumph. Around him, the world buzzed with life in its purest form. The gentle hum of insects, the distant chirping of birds preparing for their daily flight, and the subtle rustle of leaves, stirred by the breeze, created a symphony of resilience. Nature, relentless and patient, did not rush. It moved with purpose, growth measured in quiet moments and unwavering endurance. He mirrored that rhythm, understanding that success is not a sudden eruption but a steady climb, a collection of small victories stacked over time. His mind replayed the nights drenched in doubt, where shadows whispered lies, and hope seemed a fragile dream, slipping through trembling fingers. Yet, those moments no longer held him captive. They were the crucible that shaped his resolve, the dark soil from which his courage sprouted. He had learned that strength does not come from never falling, but from rising each time the ground claims you. The pain was real, the scars fresh, but within them lay the blueprint of a warrior, someone who dared to fight despite the odds. Sunlight spilled over the horizon in waves of gold and amber, illuminating the path ahead with a promise of new beginnings. It was a silent call to action, an invitation to step beyond fear and embrace the challenges waiting in the light. The warmth touched his skin, seeping into his bones, fueling the fire kindled inside. That fire was no longer fragile. It roared with the voices of every setback overcome, every tear shed, every whispered prayer for strength. He paused briefly, feeling the weight of the journey so far settle into his shoulders. The road behind him was littered with failures, regrets, and moments of profound loneliness. But the burden was not a chain, it was armor. Each hardship had forged resilience. Each disappointment had carved wisdom. He carried these gifts silently, knowing they were the weapons he needed for battles yet to come. The air shimmered with possibility. Every breath was a declaration of defiance against surrender. He thought of those who had doubted him, who had whispered that he was not enough. Their words were distant now, mere echoes drowned out by the steady beat of his determination. He did not seek to prove them wrong out of spite, but to prove to himself that the human spirit is unbreakable when fueled by purpose. With deliberate steps, he moved forward. The ground beneath seemed to hum with energy, a pulse syncing with his own heartbeat. The journey would be long, the terrain unforgiving, but he was ready. Each obstacle was an opportunity to rise higher, each challenge a chance to discover depths of strength he had never known. He understood now that the road to greatness is paved with perseverance, patience, and the courage to face the storm again and again. His thoughts drifted to the moments of clarity found in silence, the quiet realizations that change begins within. The voice urging him to rise was not an external force, but the deepest part of his being. It was the essence of his will, refusing to be extinguished. That voice carried the truth that no matter how dark the night, dawn is inevitable. And with dawn comes light, hope, and the chance to begin anew. As he walked, the landscape around him transformed. The thick fog that once obscured the path began to lift, revealing the contours of the road, its hills and valleys, its bends and stretches. It was a metaphor for his journey, filled with highs and lows, moments of clarity and confusion. But now, with each step, the way became clearer. The uncertainty faded into possibility. He felt the steady beat of life in his veins, the unstoppable force that drives all who refuse to quit. It was not about avoiding failure, but about embracing it as part of the story. The scars and wounds were marks of survival, badges of honor earned in the silent battles, fought far from the eyes of the world. These were the true measures of strength. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows that danced around him, reminders that light and dark exist together. The contrast made the light even more precious, a symbol of victory born from struggle. He knew the journey ahead would be filled with moments that would test his resolve, push him to the edge, and demand every ounce of courage he could summon. But he was ready. He had chosen to stand, to fight, to keep moving when all seemed lost. The fire within him was not a fleeting flame, but a blazing inferno that would light the darkest nights. Every breath, every heartbeat, was a testament to his unyielding spirit. He lifted his face to the sky, feeling the sun's warmth as a blessing and a challenge. The day stretched out before him, vast, uncharted, and full of promise. The path was his to claim. The battle was far from over, but he would meet it head-on, because he understood this truth more deeply than ever. You cannot give up, not when your soul cries out for more, not when your heart beats with relentless hope, not when your journey has only just begun. With unwavering resolve, he stepped into the light, ready to face whatever came next. And so, as you stand at the crossroads of doubt and determination, remember this: your story is still unfolding. The moments that test you, that shake you to your core, are the very moments that shape the hero within. Do not turn away from the struggle. Do not silence the fire that burns inside your soul. Because when you refuse to give up, when you choose to rise again and again, you become unstoppable. The journey is hard, the nights are long, but the dawn is always coming. Hold fast to your dreams. Trust in your strength. And know this: your greatest victory begins the moment you decide that giving up is not an option. Keep moving forward. Your breakthrough is waiting on the other side.